What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Rodeo Wagon podcast. I'm excited to have Cody Nance here today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Kyle. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a minute. We've been both kind of either on the injury train or haven't really crossed paths. We did what event was it? Was it Memphis last year? Maybe there's
And
one velocity event I think I saw you at.
yeah, it's been a couple years ago. It wasn't Memphis, but maybe Knoxville, was it?
It
I
could have
can't
been
remember.
not. Yeah, it could have been Knoxville. I think it was in Tennessee, so probably Knoxville.
Yeah. If I'm mistaken, that was the one last time. Last time I dislocated my hip. I also dislocated my shoulder at the same time in the short round. Was that the
Yeah, I
one?
think that was the one. That
Okay.
man, that was wild too.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, and it was awesome because I was just making my return. I think I was sitting on the velocity events but then like yeah, I mean, it's a rough sport. You're going through some stuff as it is, but on that recovery train, um, gosh, it's just it sucks when you complete a good bull ride and you go to get off of one and then the injury occurs and twice I dislocated my hip in that way, and that was one of them. But
Yeah, man, that does suck because I think it's more you almost question. I don't know about you, but you almost question yourself like, hey, what could have I done better on my get off to prevent that? Because it wasn't, there's times where it's like, hey, this was going to happen, period. Like you get stepped on, you buck off, that's just part of it. But when you make a good bull ride, like you had an opportunity, you feel like,
I mean, you buck off, and you never know. You're not supposed to land on your feet and get off good. If you know, you're supposed to eat dirt. If you're trying, if you ain't trying, it shows. But I mean, yeah, when you complete a bull ride and you ride a good one, you should focus on finishing the job and getting off well. Uh, Too many people I've seen these days, they just let go and Jesus take the wheel. And I mean, honestly, yeah, my career's been that way a lot. I'm not, but yeah,
Man, me and Keith talk about looking down the barrel, and there's like certain riding styles where, if you're cutting them off and you're kind of really using your hips and riding behind, and you can do it, but every single round you have to be fully committed because there's a longer period where you're not in control. Then, and I feel like there's a few guys that did that really well throughout their career. Sean Willingham did. I feel like you did that pretty dang well into your hand throughout your career, getting in that spot where you get tipped back, but you're able to fight through that.
you know, maybe you just got to keep your hips under your rope, and I don't know it. Um, I've been blessed throughout my career. Riding into my hand was never my strong point. I always liked them away from my hand. Now, when I started riding with the Brazilian rope, that changed. I was able to ride better into my hand than I was away from it. Well, back in July, I ripped my bicep tendon off, and Dr. Tandy repaired that, had to anchor it down through the ona, and so that required him drilling a hole through my ona and stitching all around my bicep tendon anchor and pulling it all back down. There's a flat plate ran through there and kept it tied down. He said it'd be a 1% chance it'd come off again. Which I've always tried to eat good and keep myself in shape, and I've
Yeah.
always kind of been flexible, especially to be an older guy. Like I'm probably still one of the most flexible guys on tour. I spent a lot of time trying to keep my body in motion, which I think is important, obviously, in the game of bull riding, because if you don't, then it's a game of you always hear people say it ain't if you get hurt, it's when and how bad. And so, that recovery time obviously can be shortened if you're already in shape, and you
Yeah.
don't much of that strength and flexibility if you kind of overdo it and you've overdone it to begin with. And so I've always tried to put a lot of work and time into that, and I've been blessed throughout my career, and not having to worry about too many injuries until the last probably 5, 6 years. And
Yeah.
so Um, I just feel like, into my hand, been able to set my hips under my rope and lift on it. It keeps me from overriding them because I have a tendency into my hand to get in there too much, and it's harder for me to get out. So I kind of let them bulls pack me around and bring me around, and that I'm, kind of strong enough to be able to hold myself there. So, and I've always been pretty solid with my feet too. I like, strong legs and get a hold well and have a good foundation. And I think that helps also.
I when
But
I first started, I think I probably looked up to you as like maybe out of all those guys, you, Triplet, because I started in 2012, so you would have been like in, right there. You won Rookie of the Year in what, 2009? Is that correct?
yeah, so
So
I graduated in the year in '06, and in 2009 is the year I made it on tour. I got hurt there in between. I got a rib put through my lung and spent 14 days in the hospital. That was the year before I made it on tour. So that was my first big injury. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of rocky coming back from that. As you know, you always you'll have tendencies to get in your head. And I don't know, it just, I was pretty determined I was going to make the World Finals. And so that next year I got a job hanging guardrail.
nice.
And I tell you what, I I was as strong as I'd ever been in my whole career, my whole life. I could pick up a 350-pound head off guardrail that we cut off and throw it over the guardrail into the trailer, you know. Um, and the good thing is the guy that he owned the company, he was from San Antonio, Texas, CJ Stavinoa. And he says, Cody, he says, you're a bull riding machine. You've rode everything I got. He says, are you going to go PBR or what? And I was like, well, I got hurt last year, and I said, I'm just trying to get my bearings back. I really just am taking this time to save some money and stuff. And he goes, well, if you really want to go PBR, he says, here we are in the summer. He says, you can make it. He says, I'll call my dad next week and have you in Victoria, Texas. I was like, okay, let's go. So I went down there and I ended up entering it twice. Lane 14 got me in, and I think I ended up second and third, and then went to Clovis, California, and won that. Like Elliot Jacoby, met him there, and he ended up winning second. So we jumped in the vehicle together. No, I went first. He went second, and then we went to Brighton, California, I think it was. And the next night, and I ended up second there. And then I got the call to Worcester, Massachusetts, and I remember going to Worcester and. The first night they kind of handed it to me. I don't know, maybe I was just in my head a little bit, but the next night I ended up riding a really nice bull away from my hand, and then the next weekend I remember I they lost my gear bag at the airport.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, so you show up to you get to the big show,
And
and
you don't
and you
have your stuff.
get on these rank suckers, and anyway, I got it handed to me pretty bad, and some of my stuff shows up the next day, and I ride Bird Creek, uh, Jeff Robinson's for 90 and a half, 91 and a half, something like that. And then the next weekend, I go to what was it? Um, oh, that was my third Built Ford Tough event back in the day of Built Ford Tough, wasn't
Yeah, with the BFTS. Yeah.
it?
Yep.
That's old
Yeah, that's
school.
funny. Yeah, kids nowadays don't even know that, which is funny because when I started up, I didn't really understand the Bud Light cup because that was way before I even had watched bull riding.
Yeah,
And
well, when I was watching on TV, that's what it was. It
it
was the
was the
Bud Light.
Bud Light, yeah.
It was Built Ford Tough, and
I
so
think I
then
got my first year going was a BFTS, and I think it was the year after maybe or the year after that when they changed it to the UTB. So I caught the
yeah,
last couple years of it.
yeah, that's probably around the time we met, wasn't it?
Yep, around 2017.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean it's crazy how things just clicked real quick, there. And my third Built Ford Tough event, Adriano Moraes was there, and he was kind of gunning for me, helped me out, and pulled my rope in the short round, and um, I didn't really know what I was getting on in the short round. I didn't know any of them short round bulls. And LJ Jenkins, I knew he knew a bunch of them. Bulls, and so I was like, LJ, what should I pick? And he tells me, he says, "Oh, you should pick that Super Duty. He'll fit you good." Talking about Hustler of HC Pages. He'd never been rode before. And I think Adriano might have just been a little scared for me. He comes up, "Well, he knock your lights out, you know. You got." He tries to tell me, you know, and we go over the fundamentals of how this bull actually bucks. And I thought, man, this guy is a genius when it comes. Like I knew his record, I knew his score, you
Yep.
know, his resume, and I was like, okay, I'm just soaking it in. You know, I'm about what 20, 21 years old, um, and I don't have the experience he has. You know, I started riding bulls when I was 14 years old, and so you know, I've gotten some good bulls under my belt, but nothing like that guy. And so I knew he knew what he was talking about. He says, "This bull here," he says, "he'll push off that back end and his front end will hit the ground. And then his front end's coming back up before his back end hits the ground. And then he's launching again." And I was like, okay. So he says, "And a lot of guys, they really want to go to the front. And what they'll do is they'll go to the front and try to overcompensate, and he'll get them rocking and jerk them down, knock their lights out." He says, "They straight up and down and just let him buck underneath of you." I'm like, you know, I've never met the guy before, and I'm just, yes, sir, yes, sir. And sure enough, he pulled my rope and the bull belt out of there, and he did his deal, and I did exactly what Adriano told me to do, and it worked. And I was rode him for like 91.5 points, and heck, I enjoyed the ride so much. I picked him again later that year in Springfield, Missouri, and I rode him again for like 90.5. I just loved it. And you know, it's fun, you know, because you've seen it. You stick it on one of them suckers, and everybody else starts picking up on it. And well,
Yep.
then Austin Meyer ended up riding him. I think
Yeah.
a couple, maybe a couple more people ended up staying on him, but yeah, it's kind of fun. Like you know, you got them bulls, but you can't let them get in your head. That's number one. You know, you got to know your worth. You got to know what you're capable of, and keep the basics and the fundamentals the same every time you get on one.
I think that's one of the biggest things too. I never thought about that, but really speaking volumes to the mental side of this sport, that happens a lot. There's a lot of these bulls that will have pretty long streaks, and then they
There's
get rode one time, and then game over. Everybody starts having their number, and it has to be a mental psychological thing that's going on there.
it really
I'm
does. Yeah, the bulls can be scary, and then I mean, you think about it too. You've heard all the motivational videos and things like that. And okay, you know that I don't know all the statistics, but such and such ran, you know, a mile in, you know, this amount of time, and thought, well, that can never be broken, right? Well, until somebody did it, and then somebody was like, "Oh, I did it, so I can do it," you know, and then they started break, and then you know, you look at that, and that makes it awesome. You know, I look up to guys like Jose Victor Lemme, you know, because he comes in here and sets the bar so high,
Yeah.
and it makes, you know, it really does make everybody else step up to their game,
Yeah,
and
the
it just,
expectations there.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you have, if you're going to be the best, you got to ride the best and beat the best.
I think that's one of the biggest things too, that I've seen throughout my career between the Velocity Tour and the UTB or the Built for Tough. Is that mentality. My favorite part about going to UTB events is obviously you're getting on the good bulls, but you get on them at some of the velocities. But the biggest difference is every single person in that locker room wants to win, just period.
Uh,
Where if you go to
And they're,
some of those lower level events, there may be a couple guys there that really want to win, and everybody else is somewhere in between, just being there just to get on at a PBR and just kind of being there.
yeah, well, you know, and some of that's just going through the bait. Like, I don't know if they feel like they belong there. You know, yeah, that's what you're talking about. You know, everybody in that locker room, they feel like they belong there,
Yeah.
and that's what's cool about it, because they're all bringing their A game. You can tell. they when they get ready, they're getting on that bull, you'll have one or two of them guys that are kind of like them bulls. It's their first time there, and the fireworks go off, and they're like, "Ooh," get a little shaky. But it don't take long to figure out whether they're going to stick around or not.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's man, that's true. I was talking to Kyler, was it last week, Oliver, and we were talking about that. I said there's only a few amount of guys out there that really want to get to that level and do it every weekend. Like not
yeah,
only so many guys want to get on them bulls that are freaking monsters and are freaking shaking, and their muscles are twitching because they're so freaking
yeah,
I
they
don't
feel
not roided out, but that's kind of like freaking their diets on point. These are athletes.
yeah, yeah. And some of the guys that I started out with, were as close to expert level as I had ever met, around me. When they when they knew that I was trying to get on the tour, and on the PBR tour, they said, you know, they also delivered a good aspect of, this. And I think it's kind of one thing that I've always remembered, um, and it's probably been a huge um, I don't know. You think about that mental block, and whether you do belong, or you get there and you see some people, they're like a firecracker. They get there and they're like, wow, and then they do good,
Yeah.
and then they're gone. But they put it in me. There's like, well, yeah, anybody can make it there, but what's really impressive is the ones that get there and they stay there.
Yeah. Yeah, no joke.
You look at JB Mooney, you look
Yeah.
at Guillermo Marchi, and
Joel Vieira.
and Joao, and he's making a good run to make that happen. But you're looking at JB made 14 World Finals.
Yeah.
So did so did Guillermo, and so I find not the wins, or the consecutive rides, or the consistency or any of that being my my greatest achievement. I look at it being like, okay, well, I'm not even rookie of the year in 2009. I was up against Douglas Duncan and Stormy Wing, and Stormy, another one of them guys. He's
Yeah.
for a long time, and really showed out and ended up on top, on his way out, rode old Bruiser for what, 95 and a half
Mhm.
points, Albuquerque.
Was that
And
about the same time as Chase too? Outlaw?
Chase was a little bit younger. He came in
Okay.
a year, 2 years later, and you look at him, and just that time that you spend there, that duration is, it that's the most challenging part is, year in, year out. You're looking at back in the, they just changed it, but we were going 30 events a year, and
Yeah,
then
no joke.
all summer long. And that's a big weekend, every time you go, you're looking at what, 2 to 5 bulls in a
Yeah.
weekend, the best in the world. And then they implemented the 15-15, and we're like, did we need that? So I mean, it beats you up, and you got to keep going. And I don't have quite as many as them. I got 12 World Finals in me, but I'm thankful for everyone every time I've made it. And it's been it's a grueling match every time you get on one of them bulls at that level.
Yeah, I think
And
too, like
so
the testament to your, the fitness side of things and like being able to physically be able to do that. That's impressive too, because there's guys that even have the talent, but they physically just couldn't hold it together. And you're talking at the beginning of the year where like before the split, you had a full year. You legitimately, even if you had a, shoulder reconstruction, which is one of the longer recoveries, you're looking at 6, 7 months, you still have a chance to make the world finals in the a little amount of time that you can ride.
right,
So,
yeah.
you know,
And yeah, it was January. We'd start out at Madison Square Garden, and then we'd take our break in late May and early June, and then we'd start back up in August and go all the way to November, and that'd be our World Finals. And
you
yeah, I mean,
probably went in the summertime a lot too, though. That probably actually, you probably got on more in the summer than you did in the
in
spring and fall.
competition, see who could enter the most and get on the mill. And just in PBR alone, I get on close to 150 bulls in a year, and I bet, yeah, I probably went to as many, or I probably went to more rodeos during the summer than I went all year long, just in those 2 months. And
Yeah.
I would end like stupid amount, like I got on at the classic event, and they're in was it
Decatur?
Darling,
Oh,
something like that. I think I entered
oh,
it four
yeah,
times
Durham.
on eight. And but I mean, it was kind of cool because I mean it bettered my chances to win, and if you did real good, kind of like that event, I ended up, I placed a lot. I think I only bucked off one of them, but it
Yeah.
was like added, and I went home with $8,500. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
beat that. And then Rapid City, was it Rapid City or no, somewhere up there, Minnesota, I guess it was. And uh, they kept saying, "Well, you want a kid on this one? You want a kid on it?" Because it'd be limited amount of entries, and they wanted to fill the show and buck the bulls. And I'm like, "Run it, man! I'm having a good week." So
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I feel great. My body's healthy. Why not? So it being 20,000 out, I think I left with like 14,000. So I mean, um, that doesn't do nothing but better your chances to win a world title. And I mean, that's where I'd get a lot of points for the year too. And that was and a lot of money. I could win a lot of money during the summer doing that. So, uh,
What was
oh,
your when you're going hard, like obviously recovery and fitness has been such a huge part of what you've done, but like what does that diet look like? Like what's a diet look like when you're recovering from an injury, like your bicep injury now, opposed to when the regular season's going on? How do you maintain that because there's definitely a difference when you're on the road all the time and then when
yeah,
you're trying to mend.
yeah, and be honest, I don't really focus on the. I mean, I think I just
I'd say the
uh,
diet. I mean, I meant the training regimen, not diet. Your
the
diet's
training.
important. Yeah, like what does that look like as far as maintaining, you know, whatever that's endurance, what are you trying to maintain in the regular season and then what are your kind of focuses when you're recovering from injuries?
Well, be honest, I really try to give my body a break during the off season,
Okay.
and it'll, 3 or 4 weeks before I'll really start pushing myself, which I know, you know, working out is important, but I think the way you eat is just as equally
Sure.
important. If
Yeah,
and
definitely.
whatever you put in your body is what you get out of. And so, um, I think just focusing on maintaining the right weight is my big thing. And if I can tell if I'm fluctuating around, and I know when to cut back from salt because salt, causes you to retain water, which retaining water slows you down.
Mhm.
And but you have enough in you because it, creates a, elasticity in your muscles. And so if you're dehydrated, there's chance you're going to end up tearing a muscle or ripping something. And so you gotta find that happy medium and whatever works for you. Some people retain water more than others, but I like to stick with my omega 3s. I,
Yeah.
I you got to have those omega 3s. That really helps, and being an older guy, I'm fixing to be 36 this month, and so you want that flexibility. It's good for your brain, good for everything, and so you want that your fatty acids. You want your you don't want a ton of carbs, but I noticed that going to those big events every weekend like that, man, I would try to not eat too much, but I felt like I was so hungry and I needed to eat
Yeah.
enough to give myself an opportunity to recover through the week.
All right.
So I would, but I felt so weak by the middle of the weekend. So I learned, just studying that, I needed those omega 3s, I needed those fats, but I also needed carbs, and so I would try to implement some kind of carbs 2 to 3 days before the competition, and I would always try to keep my carbs down because I bulk up so quick. And
Yeah.
so I found that, like, I discovered carb powder. And so I love the carb powder because I can drink it and my body absorbs it and it'll start carving up my muscles and it'll give me the energy to last through the weekend. And
Sure.
so that I don't get so fatigued.
I think Andrew, did you talk to Andrew Alvidrez about that? He was telling,
Uh-uh.
okay, he was
I
telling
mean,
me about that. He was telling me about because I was talking to him. When was this? I don't, I think it was at Sacramento, maybe
I don't know.
this
Him and I
year or
talk,
last year, and he was telling me about it.
but yeah, he's so fit. That guy, he's stout. And I remember when I met him, his legs were so big. He was just a young pup, and we were at Maxwell, New Mexico, bull riding school. And about the time I met Dalton Castle and them, like they were just young guys coming to the school. I was teaching the school and one of the instructors,
Yeah.
but like I was like, Andrew, I was like, dude, you're about too big, like not fat, but like
Yeah.
stout.
Yeah. Stout.
Wasn't he a state champion deadlifter or something like
I think,
that?
yeah,
Like,
he did powerlifting. He did powerlifting when he was young.
legs were
Yeah.
so big, how you straddle a bull. He was having trouble, and so his legs were just massive, and his shoulders and everything were so big, and I was like, man, you're like you're not very tall, and you're built so strong. Like if you could just trim that down and
Yeah.
be strong pound, that would help you a ton. And so Andrew and we've always been tight. We've always been big on talking about all this, the physical aspect and the mental part.
Yeah.
We get it.
And it's
But
it's been so, you talk about too, like the recovery. I feel like I've unintentionally become an expert just on freaking like recovering from major injuries. Like
yeah,
there's so much that happens to your body when you have these surgeries and stuff. Like people
yeah,
don't really like
no,
my thing is like when people ask me like when I'm going to be done riding bulls. I'll probably want to ride bulls longer than I will, and I'll probably retire when I don't feel like I can recover the way that I should. So if I go into a surgery or whatever, I'm off 4 or 6 months, and I don't feel like I have the motivation to recover really well to come back, that's probably when I'll, because there's so much that goes into it. Like how are you building up strength, and like you were talking about, and I don't know if people need to realize how important it is to understand your body and what's going on. Understand where you're at, with hydration, where you're at with size. Like I've dabbled with different sizes in riding, and I know what I feel like at specific sizes and with specific diets. I feel like not enough bull riders really take into consideration how important that is. You know, not just to maintaining health, but to recovering once you get hurt.
yeah. And I'm about 5'9". I think you might be just a little taller than
Yeah,
me.
I'm 5'11", 6 foot.
Yeah, and what do you weigh what do you like to weigh when you're riding?
So I I got down to where I really like to be around 145, but to be honest, I think this next time I'm gonna put some more muscle on, and I'm probably gonna get up closer to 165, 170. The heaviest
That's
I've ever been is 190, and I thought that was too much.
I was up to 190 once, and I would ride pretty decent, but I just felt a little slower.
Yeah, yep. And you hit the ground a lot harder, I felt like too.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I like to be around 165, 170. The
Yeah.
personal, that's about where I maintain.
I like to if I'm at the 170, I like to have a lot of my strength, my weight in my legs, you know, for me. But I don't blow up either. So like I'm, like I'm eating a lot. Like when I get up to that weight, and it's a strong, healthy weight, like I'm not too bulky, I'm still a thin. Like it takes me like when I got up to 190, I was pretty big, but
Yeah.
not as big as you would be at 190 because I'm 6 inches taller than you are.
Oh
So
yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of that that goes into it.
I was yeah, I was like I look like Andrew is a power lifter. I was,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean that, but like it worked for me for a while.
Yeah.
like I said, I just didn't like that because I didn't feel as agile and as caddy. Um, I could muscle them bulls a bit, but you can't muscle some of them. There's
Yeah.
different bulls.
Yeah. For me, I think the hardest part about keeping that weight on, especially on the road, for me is like how much I have to actually eat to keep that weight. So when I am at 170 and I'm a athletic 170, then I feel like my diet's really hard to maintain on the road. And so that's where, like, if I drop down and I go a full size down at like 145, that's quite a bit, lower in weight, but it's easily maintained. I can maintain that weight really, really easy.
I know by the end of summer, like it was easy for me to keep the same weight like January to May, but then when I started, June and July summer run, man, by the end of the summer, I probably had already lost 10
Yeah.
pounds of that. That's what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
It was I could see it in my face. I could see it everywhere,
Yep.
but I couldn't feel it because I think because I was getting on so many bulls that I was able to maintain that strength.
Yeah.
And then, you know, but I did notice that after like hunting season, after the winter break, we would have the finals in November, and then I would be out in the woods. I would hunt and I'd be packing and gear and everything else. And my legs would just be so strong, and
Yeah.
you know, it seemed like whenever I started the year, that was always. Man, I always probably started January better than I did in August. You know,
Yeah.
harder the second half of the year to maintain probably everything that I had gained during hunting
Yeah.
seasons.
During hunting
So,
season, yeah.
yeah, which you're a big hunter too.
I
Like,
am. Yeah, I was
yeah,
actually, so this year, because I just messed my shoulder up, but I had surgery on my ankle in June. And
yeah,
so this year's hunting season, like I just got, to where I could go hunting and stuff. And I ended up shooting one, and it was on the other end of my property, which it's only like 15 acres, but it's all the way uphill. And I drug that sucker all the way up, and I got up to the top, and I was freaking, my lungs were burning so hard. I'm like, man, this really
yeah.
took a toll on my freaking cardio. Like I need to get my endurance back. Just because the ankle, there wasn't a lot I could do for, my cardio at that point. So that,
Yeah. And I had to pack one up a hill about 150 yards on my shoulders this winter through the
yeah.
woods, and it was a lot. I was like, it wasn't a real big body deer, but man, it was enough. And I hadn't been able to do that in a while because I've had the shoulder injury, and
Yeah.
um, last year I actually got that fixed in August.
How many, is that your first shoulder?
Well, I've dislocated it 3 times in competition. It's just
Okay.
started to fall. I
It just
woke
started
up,
falling out.
it was out, and I got it. I worked it back in, and then I was stretching one evening, and then it came out, and I was pushing my mechanical bull in the trailer when last year, and it just came out, and so I was like, man, I have to get this thing worked on and fixed, and it would. I was so like. Yeah, I was pretty bummed the last time it came out in competition because it would have been my 300th qualified ride on tour. I'd been the 20th guy to ride my 300, on the elite. And I had just gotten through 299 the night before. And that was during the ride. I had him knocked out. I was up in Billings, Montana. And he goes back the other way, and I make my move, and it just pops out. And that time it actually fractured my humerus head.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got the MRI and stuff and came back. My rotator cuff was 95% torn. My labrum was torn off. And Dr. Tandy done a great job getting all that fixed up. But, you talk about putting a damper in your hunting season.
Yeah.
Um, I,
Hey, I got through hunting season this time, but it's still bow season right now. So I was going
yeah.
out hunting, and then freaking that happened, and now I definitely did my rotator cuff because I can't even pick my hand up high enough to where
I
you can see
hurt
it.
my low back. I couldn't shoot a gun because
Yep,
that's
that's
part of
that's
that's
the one.
I did, and Matter of fact, I went to get I was checking on my date for my hunting license, and I think I ended up getting my hunting license like the last week of the season. So my hunting license is still good from last
Yeah.
from earlier this year, technically. But it is, yeah. Um, so I probably won't have to buy my hunting license this year. It won't end until nearly. But yeah, I mean, I didn't get to hunt all winter hardly last year. So I've been trying to hit it hard this winter and get out there. It's just a good.
How much have you shot? Have you shot many or?
Not really. I've been after this one, so I've let a bunch of them walk.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, this one, he's really kind of been playing with me a bit.
They'll do that,
He's
especially the mature
he's
bucks, man.
a deer, and he's got about 2,000 acres there to run on, and
Yeah.
a handful of times, but I've never been able to get him pinned down. I'm hoping maybe I don't know. He's been pretty hot on the doe, so I don't know. I'm thinking maybe he'll be easier to cap on whenever he slows down.
Then yeah, it definitely. That's one thing too, is everybody gets so focused on the rut. I feel like during rut, my property, it's like just going out there and gambling. It's I mean, you're just gambling on whether you're gonna see anything worth shooting or what you're gonna see. Whereas pre and post rut, like they're in a routine, and if you got a trail cam out there, you can kind of track them. You can get an understanding of how their movement is and where they're moving and when. I almost prefer that, especially them big deer like that. Although
Yeah,
some of them big deer, you don't hardly see them in daylight, but in rut, you may see them.
yeah, true that. But I mean, I think if you hunt them too hard too, that's the problem. They
Yeah,
start working
100%.
right,
Yeah.
and
That's nice though about being on that much property is you're not dealing with a ton of hunting pressure outside of what you're putting on them.
yeah, I actually I don't really use cameras or nothing like that. So I like I like to keep it more organic and
Oh
keep it
yeah.
fun. Yeah. And so um I'm able to go hit a hillside and just sit on the tree
Okay.
here or something. Um but I actually discovered this deer on horseback. I got a non-sided mare, and she heard him. I think it was probably about 75 to 100 yards out, and she just stopped and she stuck them ears up, and she was like, I was like, oh, what is it, honey? And so she was just kind of like watching in the area, and I rode over that way. Well, there's this thicket. I mean, it you couldn't see through it. And I found out that's where he likes to hang out. I've been seeing a bunch of rubs and wrecks back there, and he's I think that's his honey hole. That's where he
Yeah.
likes to hang out.
Yeah, and then mature bucks will find them little spots like that that are super sick and you wouldn't ever see them.
And it's surrounded by a hillside. It
Yep.
goes like just on the hill, right in the edge of the woods. And so I've been seeing a bunch of trees worn out. And I just know he's been running all over this property. And now, whenever, like you said, rut slows down, he'll probably venture back up to that spot.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, he's pretty good size.
Do
Oh,
you
I'm hoping.
how much do you eat? Do you eat mostly venison? How many deer do you generally go through a year? Just as far as meat
Uh,
wise?
a couple at least.
Oh,
I'll grind up, and yeah, a couple at least. I'll grind up the deer meat, and
yep.
I like to kill a couple and things like but just because I like the meat quality better.
Super
And
lean.
what I'll try,
Deer is very lean.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know, the doe, they eat better, but
Yeah. Yeah, especially than a mature. Like if you're hunting a mature buck, they're not going to eat as good.
no, and I'll make a jerky out of them, and
Yeah.
grind some of it up.
Yeah, I mean, heck, their
But I'll
tenderloins and back straps are still freaking killer. So,
but like a doe, I'll cube up, the hindquarters, whatever meat I can, get the biggest slab of lean meat I can. I like to cube it up, and I'll cook it really rare. I'll just
yeah.
sear it, and
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah, I like
and
to
I
even heck, and it doesn't even for me, it doesn't even matter. Like, so It you get a tender cut and it stays tender, but even if you get freaking, one of their hips or whatever, and you cube that up and throw it in a pan and just to sear it like that, you eat it right away, that sucker's still pretty tender, especially if you do that pretty soon after you've killed it.
Yeah, I really like doing that. And I'll last year I actually took I was up at Loretta Lynn's for a weekend, and I took a smoker up there, and took out of my freezer, my or my I had a Yeti cooler there with a deer that's all quartered up. Well, I would take and I'd cook those quarters. I'd sit there and I'd smoke those quarters up, and once the outside I could tell smoked up pretty good, I'd cut it off, and I'd use olive oil, my marinade and stuff like that. And on one end of my smoker, right over the fire, right over my coals, I'd had a cast iron plate there, and I just sear it, and I would put it in the bag, and I'd froze
Yeah,
it that way.
okay,
So yeah, I put up a bunch of meat like that last year, and I think I'll try that again.
try
That's
that
good
again. Yeah, that's interesting.
because
Me
it's nice, like it's all cubed up and cut
Yeah,
up, and I did as a stew that way. If I wanted a steak, I'd have one ready. I could just pull it out of the freezer, and it's all you know portionized. Where
sure.
you know, I guess I don't know. It's pretty nice to have it like that, and
Do
I have
you
a new way of.
do you process have you always processed all yours? We've always done it. I've never taken anything to a processor, but have you?
I think I've only taken one deer ever to the processing
For
plant.
process, yeah, just doing it yourself. I'm sure it's good taking it to the process. If you're wanting to mix, like I know some people, like who was it? Brady Sims. Talking to Brady, he's like, I don't mind deer hunting, but he's like, I don't like the taste of venison unless you mix a bunch of beef with it. And he said, then
Oh,
I just might as well just eat beef. So I guess there are people that
right.
prefer, they may like venison, but not enough to really get that gaminess.
Well, and some people don't like how lean it is because when they cook
Yeah.
it down, they want more fat, and I'm like, well, that's the point in eating venison. But
Yeah.
anyway, they'll pork fat it and grind it up in
Uh-huh.
there, and and that's fine. But
I
I
like the
just don't.
gaminess to wild game. So like if we do a lot of burger. We do a lot of burger and
And I personally do too. I like it, and um, I don't know. Yeah, and another thing, I just know that when you take your deer to a processing plant, you don't really know what you're getting.
What's up, everybody? I'm thrilled to announce a fantastic partnership between the Rodeo Wagon podcast and Rodeo Life Official. Rodeo Life isn't just a coffee brand, it's a veteran owned business that epitomizes the principles of hard work, dedication, and perseverance in all their products. As an avid consumer of Rodeo Life coffee, I am proud to align myself with a company that mirrors my values and resonates with our audience. Supporting this veteran owned business is not only a testament to our shared ethos, but also a way to give back to those who have served our country. This partnership promises exciting content, collaborations, and surprises for all our listeners and the rodeo community. You can anticipate special episodes featuring the Rodeo Life experts and even a chance to win some Rodeo Life merchandise. We look forward to this journey with Rodeo Life and the enriching experience it will bring our audience. Join us as we venture into this partnership, fueled by a passion for rodeo and a great cup of Rodeo Life coffee. Stay tuned for more exciting updates and the amazing things to come from the Rodeo Wagon podcast and Rodeo Life Official. Make sure you go to rodeolifeofficial.com and check out all their sweet merch. Are you searching for that perfect statement? Look no further than Bluegrass Engraving, where creativity meets craftsmanship. Their specialty lies in creating custom buckles and dip cans, but that's not all. They redefine elegance with an exquisite line of jewelry, and for those who appreciate a little flair, check out their engraved guns collection. At Bluegrass Engraving, they don't just create products, they craft experiences. Visit Bluegrass Engraving today and let them turn your visions into engraved realities. Bluegrass Engraving, where artistry meets authenticity. Hey there, folks. I want to tell you about my favorite cowboy hat brand, Sombrero Brands. As a professional bull rider, I know how important it is to have a hat that not only looks good, but can withstand the toughest rides out there. And that's exactly what Sombrero Brands delivers. Their hats are custom fitted and shaped to perfection, with a level of attention to detail that's hard to find these days. But what really sets Sombrero Brands apart is the fact that they're a family-owned and operated business. Mark and Kendall Holler, the owners, and their daughter Sarah, who's only 13 but already a hat-making prodigy, are all passionate about their craft. They know what it takes to make a cowboy hat that can stand up to anything the rodeo circuit can throw at it. And get this, the founder's grandfather, Polly Holler, was born and raised at South Camp on the 4 Sixes Ranch. These folks have got cowboy blood running through their veins, and it shows in every hat they make. That's why I'm proud to have Sombrero Brands as a major sponsor for my podcast, the Rodeo Wagon Podcast. So if you're in the market for a hat that's tough enough to handle anything the rodeo throws at it, give Sombrero Brands a try. Trust me, you won't be disappointed.
Somebody could have that trophy buck hauling around the back of their truck for a couple of days, and and then take him in there, and you could get some of that. And I just prefer to have what I got, and
Well,
it's a lot
yeah, me
fresher
too.
that way.
Yeah. My favorite thing, like especially around deer season when it's still really fresh and it hasn't been frozen for very long, is in the mornings mixing ground venison with eggs, a little salt and pepper, some onions, and maybe some
Yeah,
mushrooms. Right there, if I could mix
yeah.
all that together, I could eat that all year round.
What do they call that? The raw hamburger meat? Like you just what is it? You sear the outside of it, and then you grind it up, and you mix the seasonings and stuff with it, and then you can just eat it with crackers. You know what I'm talking
I
about?
don't know. I don't.
I had it in Canada once when I was up there for the Global Cup deal, and
It
um,
sounds amazing.
McBride ordered some for our group on the table. I was like, "Are you sure this is sanitized?" And he's like, "Yeah, right." Yeah, he's like, "It's all sanitary." He's like, "Everything, they just grind the outside, and then they grind it, just run it straight through the grinder, make sure that the grinder is all clean, sanitized, But
Yeah.
yeah, and I was a fan of it. I've been tempted to try a deer that way.
Have you
I
shot an
haven't.
elk?
Yeah, once. So Danny Creteri, he put on the camp out there in Maxwell, New Mexico, and a couple of us instructors that like to hunt that went out there, for that year. Got to go to Raton up in New Mexico and go on a mountain there. There was a few cow tags donated, and
Okay.
man, that was pretty cool right there.
I bet.
I Oh, I killed a big old nice cow, and we were, oh man, we were 3,000 feet when we started up that mountain that day. We glassed them cows up on the top of that ridge, like 9,000 feet up there. There's right next to it that you can reach to Russia, contact from Russia. And he was telling me all about it, and I'm talking, it's a steep incline. It was 3 miles up there,
Dang.
and yeah, and I'm from Tennessee. It's about 500 feet. Sorry. So no way to prepare for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that day, yeah, we've been out there for about 3 or 4 days already, and you had to get one pinned down. And he's like, "Well, do you want to drive the mule up there, or you want to walk?" I'm like, "Dude, let's not risk scaring them. Let's go. Let's walk."
Yeah.
So we went. We all through the wood line and finally got up there. And when we got to where they were, we couldn't find them. Thought, man, so figured they probably ended up sneaking over the ridge whenever we were coming through the woods, and so I figured I'd go take a peek. Well, I got away from my cover and started up that ridge, and one of them heard me and spotted me as a calf, and man, gave me away. And so I just kind of like I just walked backwards and didn't really look at him straight on, and I got behind this rock, and ended up dropping this cow. It was crazy. They told me at the Bass Pro Shop I couldn't kill a cow with a 30-06. I was like, "You crazy? Like, you can kill a cow with a
Uh-huh.
cow."
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and he's like, "Well, you better get you a hollow point." I was like, "Okay." So actually, once I pulled the trigger, like, she was like looking straight at me, ears up, and I had no time to get this shot off hardly. And you got to think I'm out of breath and everything at this point, and like my adrenaline's going because we're only 40 yards from her, and like my heart was pounding. And so she goes to turn, and I watched that shoulder move, and I was like, "This, I ain't got a chance to wait,
Yeah.
hesitate at all." It's just a shot a little bit, and I shot about the second rib back, and it bounced off that rib, went up because we skinned her out and everything ourselves, and so I
Uh-huh.
could kind of see. And well, it broke that rib, went up, hit the spine, came down and hit the inside of the right shoulder, bounced back and went through both lungs.
Holy
And
crap.
that I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is crazy. But yeah, I'll tell you what, that was some good eating right there.
I bet.
I,
I bet you could eat on that for a little bit too. You get a little bit
I
more meat than a deer.
yeah, yeah. It was really good. I liked it as much or better than deer.
Deer. I'd like to go. Cody Campbell, he does guided hunts.
Oh yeah, he's big into that. Been
Yeah, up
doing
in
that.
Oregon. I was gonna go one year. I ended up getting hurt. At some point when I'm not hurt, I want to go up there and do it. I'd like to shoot one with my bow too.
Yeah, I mean, chances of getting real close to one like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people do, but
You probably have
first,
to just you probably have to have the right people, kind of
yeah,
to kind of
yeah.
especially if it's your first time, bow hunting, you'd have to know where to be and how to
I
stalk them if you're going to do that.
think because I mean they're pretty scarce.
Yeah.
Uh, I can imagine one of them big bulls coming through there bugling and carrying
Oh
on, and
man.
I've seen a lot of videos.
Yeah. I
It
bet
just
that
won't.
is.
Yeah,
I
they're
bet they get your
dangerous.
motor going.
As in, yeah. No, I got to see them and hear them bugle, but it was from afar. And so, yeah, I mean, I've seen, you've seen the videos where they come in through the woods and it's
Uh-huh.
just like, they can't move. um, I don't know. That would be a lot of fun. Kill one with a bow.
Yeah. Man, so like obviously you do a lot of hunting, but you're getting into the producing side and you've been how long how many years have you been doing that deal in Paris? It's been a few years now.
Years now. First event I ever produced was in 2018.
Okay.
Um, I got the opportunity to put on one in Jackson, Tennessee at the Elman Arena. Um, so in 2006, it was my very first PBR event I ever went to. It was at the Elman Arena, and I was um, I always loved that venue. It was so much energy. The way it was set up, it was a dome and
Yeah.
everything there, and then the arena was real small and confined. And you put the bulls outside and bring them down the ramp, and it's just it's like a little
It's
gladiator stage.
like a
I mean,
little
and
little Albuquerque.
yeah, kind of, yeah, it gives you the same feel.
Yeah.
And there's like 600 seats in there. It's a lot of seats. There's a lot of capacity, and so I I always loved that venue, but and Tough Hedeman ended up taking over and doing the CBRs there. PBR quit using it, producing there. Well, then PBR ended up buying the CBR out,
Yeah.
and so when that happened, I contacted PBR and asked them if they were going to produce that event, and they said no. So I took over the contract, and I put on that event 4 times, I think it was, and I mean it was really really good. I love that venue again, but like was able to move the event whenever the school district ended up purchasing the venue, and
Okay.
they said no more outside type events coming in. They were going to modify it and put some money in and whatever. So I ended up moving the event to UT Martin, about an hour and a half away, and was able to sell it out just like Jackson. So the venue there in Martin is a little different, a lot different, but it still had a good crowd, and I just tried to put on the same show I put on there. And I've done well. I've done PBR in Paris like 3 times, I think it was,
Yeah.
and that venue's kind of a little bit similar to Martin, where it's got the stadium down each side, but I prefer the dome.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of, everybody loves Albuquerque. I think that's why. Did you know that Albuquerque was set up the way it was for them to be able to sing and for the acoustics and everything. That way, it was like an amphitheater where
Okay.
they
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
travel in a
I
way
didn't
that they
know
did
that, but it makes sense.
things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy loud, and that's why.
It's inconvenient if you like, get hurt and you have to walk up them stairs with a,
Yeah,
ACL or
and then panels down that place, and
Yeah.
having they hate that venue. Yeah, work goes involved. It goes into that. It's involved in that event,
You
but
pull your groin and you have to walk up all them flights of stairs. There ain't nothing worse than that.
I remember. Well, I was I was blessed to be able to win Albuquerque in 2000. What was it? Was it 19 or something like that? And I remember after every single, what is it? And is it what, 3 days? I can't remember.
Two 2 days? I should know.
Days.
I just was there. Two,
Um,
2 days.
but
2 days. It was this year anyway. I'm not sure if they had it
but
as the event before.
like it's like going to Colorado and being like, all right, you gotta walk up the what is it, 3,000 steps. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Walk up the steps and then you got to come back down them and then you got to ride your bull and then you got
Yeah.
to go back there and then come back down and ride your bull. And I'm like, yeah, I was so tired. Kid, I'm not used to that altitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, my legs were killing me. I was like, my last bull that weekend, I was just exhausted, and and I rode him, and it just like right there at the end, he sold the farm, like split the bit, took off, and I was just so tired. Like I was like way back here on the end of my arm when he took off, and I'm like, I set my feet like I was riding a bareback horse, just like trying to get back over the front. And I finally got back over here. I was like riding, 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 and I was like, he's talking earlier about just falling off the bull. I was
Yeah.
just like I think tired. I was just like, whatever, just
Did
let
you?
me off.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, and that's funny too, because like when a bull spits the bit, it's not it's a much worse thing because when they're going straight, it's so hard to get the momentum to get you out of there. You almost just have to like, let go and just plop.
Just hit like a sack of taters.
Yeah. And just hopefully they keep running and they don't freaking, stop on a dime.
Yeah, right. But it was pretty funny. Oh,
So
but
when you're producing those events like that, like, do you pay closer attention to like where you're doing the events or specific venues? Does it kind of all come into play a little bit as far as where to produce them?
it's just where you can. There's so many events going on these days, and want to oversaturate one area. So I try to find a place that there's a want, there's a need for something, and they don't have a lot going on, and I try to put on a good fun, like a fun family type event. Like I don't, I want it to be something that, your 5-year-old, your 6-year-old can go to and have a blast. Like I try to do the mutton busting and I try to implement the mini bulls and,
Yeah.
and the fights and try to have a good entertainer. And Dave Showtime Meyer, I like him. He,
Yeah, I do
the,
too.
does a great job. He's a great guy. And, everybody loves him. And, I always try to follow up and figure out what people like. And I listen and I'll let Dave know or whatever when we come back to it. And he's like, well, the people really want. He's like, well, that's a lot of work. I don't know about the time. So I try to work it all out. Where he's like, okay, well, you can put on the costume. You'll have time. You'll have this
Yep.
amount of time. Like everything laid out. Um, you know, where there's time to do everything. Because I don't know. I just try to give the people what they want when it comes to that. I mean, they're the ones buying the tickets. I try to make
Sure.
it affordable and I'm not corporate, I'm not big corporate, so I can do that. I don't
Yeah, right.
I'm
Yep. Yeah, you
That's
have
what
the luxury.
a family function where, it's affordable and they're going to have a good time and they look forward to coming back. And, just if I can take that to a small town and have some success, then, them a lot of them folks can't afford to go to a PBR event. I mean, the ticket prices are outrageous. And so, to
Very
be able to
expensive.
get a hotel room and afford to take the family, and it's nearly impossible for a lot of people. So I could just bring something to a rural area. That's nice. That's what I try to do.
Yeah, and I think too, even I know you've added the PBR brand. Um,
Yeah.
even having that brand is nice that people that aren't around, these big cities and can't afford to take, their family of 5 to, a PBR event where the tickets are gonna be they're gonna have to travel far and the tickets are gonna be outrageous. It gives them opportunity to be able to go to a PBR event and still get to be a part of that PBR without, an arm and a leg. And honestly, the kids probably like it more because there's probably more interaction.
There is a lot of interaction. I try to keep it like that. And but I still, even with the PBR and the big fees that I got to pay PBR to even have their name attached to it and things like that, I still try to make it affordable. Like my tickets are 25, or $35,
Yeah.
So with the PBR brand on it, I'm not making a lot of money because of that. Um, that's why the only one that I do that's a PBR is the PBR in Paris. Now, if I can capitalize on a bigger venue and make it worth it, then I might. But um,
What are your thoughts as a producer? Because we've a Stu Mason Lowe was the PBR 1 year. Cornwell, he does a couple of the PBRs, and I've talked to both of them. And like it's $10,000. Basically, you're buying the PBR's brand,
yeah,
or it
well,
was 10,000. Like, is there how much value from a producer standpoint is it to have the PBR versus in your marketing approach? Does it really help that much, or
well, I guess that probably depends on where you are. The phrase bull riding sells itself a lot of times where you go, and so I mean, like, my open events, I'm able to make a lot more money off of those. But there's a lot of people that do look at that name PBR and they're like, oh yeah, this is a PBR, and but then you get into it, it's like, well, is such and such going to be there? Is Jose, all so behind all these other people that going to be there? And I'm like, well, I can't really tell you because this isn't TB, and so 2 weeks before they're going to enter this deal, and
it may or may
it's
not
just
be there?
I'm hoping that they're there. I'd
But yeah.
love for them.
You've actually so you've gotten good riders at your events. Cornwell, he's
Yeah,
done a good job of getting riders at his events, but that's still a serious thing, like for the fans, like, and I'm sure that's hard for a producer is if you are putting a PBR and you do get one of these guys, they may or may not be there for, various amount of reasons. It could be a team deal, that's going on.
yeah.
There's just
So
a lot.
it's really paying for that name, and you don't know who you're getting. Um, I know that it's just as beneficial for me to take that extra money that I'm giving PBR and put it into add the money to a bull team challenge and bring your own riders. That's awesome because them guys are going to bring the bulls that and I love the bull teams. I know most bull riders love the bull teams because you're getting on a rider friendly bull. When you're going in this draw, you don't know what you're getting on. But say like the rider friendly bull teams and it's bring your own rider, them guys, they bring team of bulls and they'll bring a rider that wants to get on that bull, and they're like, they're gunning ready to get on. So you see a lot of great bull rides that way. You may not know them by name, but it's a good show.
Yeah, and for
And
the fans, that's a huge deal because I don't
you know,
you don't want
that's
to
what
be a fan. You don't want to be a fan, show up to a bull ride, and there not be any bull rides. Nobody wants that. If you're bringing the kids to watch, you want to make sure.
yeah, but that's why I really like the rider friendly bull team events and make it a bring your own rider type deal. um Personally, I think that's my favorite to produce. um I can add, I can add good money for the guys, and I think it's just as good a show.
Yeah, and that probably takes a lot off too, as far as time, as far as like you're, as a producer, you're hiring guys, you got to get the stock. So by even taking that, and making it a bull team, that's giving you a little bit more time to make the production better, maybe in other areas as well.
Yeah, with PBR though, I mean, I was able to get those big riders there because I made it a challenge, like the big deal. So it was a tier one
Yep.
by adding 20, $30,000.
Yeah, isn't it 20,000 or more? It's tier one, and that makes a huge difference for guys trying to get points. Huge difference.
Right. Oh yeah, and that's why they'll come is because they know that they're going to be able to capitalize on more points.
And what's interesting is some of it's money, but I think it's more points than it is money at that point too.
Exactly, and so you could do a 10,000 guaranteed turn pro, and you could take that extra money that you would pay out for a tier one, and you could pay out the 10,000 guaranteed, and you can also get them there that way because that's also candy in the pocket. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, well, I can go here and I can, if I win, I can guarantee 10,000, or I can go over there and I can guarantee this many more points. Well, money talks. um,
Yeah.
and even going to that tier one, you're not going to win $10,000. So,
Yeah, no joke. Yeah.
so
Yeah, unless it's ABBI Classic or something like that. And there's only 3 guys stay on.
yeah, true. Which you got your hands full, and like I said, I do the bull teams, so you get on something nice.
Yeah, and anymore, I like the bull teams. At first, I wasn't a huge fan of the bull teams because they were super hit or miss on whether they were going to be a bunch of 78-point bulls or good ones. But I feel like the bull team industry has grown enough where the guys have a really good feel on what bulls to bring, and you can get on a good bull that's going to put you in the winner's circle. One that you should ride, but if you do, you'll be 88 on him.
Yeah, and that's like it depends on and if I don't know, that's kind of like the draw a little better because some of them contractors will bring better bulls and it gives you a better chance to win.
Yep.
And riding for a guy that he knows that he's going to bring an 83, 80, 82, 83 point bull and hope that you get that 8 second ride so he can get almost guarantee his say he's 82, you get 8 second ride, that's 8 points added to his score, so that's 90, but it really ain't going to help you in the winner's circle, you
Yeah.
know. um, but you got them other guys that are like, um, well, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna bring this bull. But if it's a bring your own rider, like the guy at LJ Jenkins bull riding in Vegas this week, he brought a really good bull and he had Dalton Castle lined up. Well, Dalton Castle, he's a bull riding little dude. Well, he rides that some gun for 91 points, and what happens? They both win.
Yeah.
So I mean, always get that, but you do have the advantage when you have access to them great bull riders like that and them great bulls. And
Yeah.
that's yeah. And so I mean, that's the benefit of as a bull rider of the bull teams being a draw sometimes because you don't always have access to those guys who have the great bulls because sometimes they already have their guys lined up.
Yeah, 100%. And I I'm kind of where I'm from, like I didn't, Missouri. There were some guys like and I've got on a couple bring your own riders of LJs. But for the most part, I'm almost 6 foot. I'm kind of a lankier guy, and I don't really the way I ride's a little bit more compact. Like I'm not getting stretched out, that's just not my riding style. So I find that the bring your own rider deals are not really a benefit to me just because if me and Keith Hall, for example, or me and Andrew Alfedra, and they're, 5'5", and, if they get one strapped, they're going to get maybe 3 points on me. If it's the same bull, I'll be 85, they'll be 88 every day. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, I think the draw, I've better chances on the draw. Like I have a better chance of getting on a Bucky bull and, opposed to every single bring your own rider like, hey, I need to find the guy that has, the buckiest bull there, and I just got to hope that I can find that guy because if that guy has already found a guy that's been on that bull 3 times, I'm probably not going to get on him.
Yeah, and then you have the great contractors. They have have all the top notch bulls, and typically they have top notch bull riders come into their place to practice and tune
Yeah.
up and warm up,
Yeah.
and so that's already he's already been proven he's probably gonna ride that sucker. He's been on him in practice been 3 or 4 times at least.
Yeah. Definitely, I think it's benefited a lot of guys that have a really good relationship with stock contractors and are close to them. I think that's a huge benefit. Well, heck,
Yeah.
the teams this year, what was the rule they made? Where it was like if you draw a bull of your coaches, you can't get on him during the week or something like that. I forget what team it was. Was it the Outlaws or something where they were getting on JW's bull during the week because they knew they had drawn him that weekend?
But that is one of the advantages. I mean, I don't see nothing wrong with it.
Hey, I'm all about it. Like until it's a rule, you can't do this. You better be doing it because it's giving you an edge.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just start. I got an idea for a new kind of deal, and I'm not going to talk too much, elaborate on that right now, because it's not been pinned down. But
Yep.
uh, it it's something that could change the game for bull riders and the sport of bull riding. Looking
Man,
forward.
yeah, that would be cool. I think there's becoming different ways to do things, and I don't think enough producers have experienced with maybe different formats or different types of series and all of these kind of things that it, traditionally it's been one way for so long. But I
Yeah,
think that maybe in the next few years we'll start to see some cool different formats that may benefit the fans and the riders and everything.
yeah, I think so. And it's really going to level things up as far as your show goes too.
Yeah.
Idea. I don't know, be something to experiment with and see how it turns out. But um, man, these bulls are just such athletes these days, and it's amazing the ability that they have. And gosh, like you look at, um, and we talk a lot about this, but we don't talk about. Um, I don't think we elaborate enough on it's the genetics that makes them buck, and that's been going on for years. And it's no more going to the sale barn and getting this bull and taking bull riding and having a great out, a great out anymore. It's yeah, you could probably go get you a sale barn bull anymore, and that and collect a 20 30 culls and have you a pretty decent set of bulls. But it wasn't like that back in the day. You had like probably one out of 100 that was
Yeah.
good bull. But I mean the culls nowadays. I got on one of Jerry Nelson's culls when I was probably what was I, about 18, 19 years old, and went 92 points on him. I mean, he would buck them once, and if they didn't buck, then he's getting rid of them.
You're
Well,
getting rid of it, yeah.
I'll take all your culls and hit pit bulls like that. And I mean, and just think about how far it's come since then. You look. I remember when the bulls were so small and compact, and then the Brazilians all came up here. And well, okay, well now we need to build these bulls up. We need to grow them.
They did too.
And but before it was we want them compact because they're more athletic. Well, then that Brazilian rope it would pull pretty snug, and them guys they'd take a tight rope. Well, now we need to build that bull up because and the guys are getting stronger too. Not just the bulls, but the guys. That
Sure.
are we look at our regimen, we look at our nutrition, all of the everything that our knowledge is providing us these days, and bull riding is no longer going to the bar and getting drunk and going and having a good ride the next day. It's you're going to bed, you're getting you a good night rest, and all the young guys are being that way. They're treating it like a sport, and they're treating themselves like athletes, and they're working out all through the week, and that's what's really I mean brought it to the new level. I mean you're looking at the team deals, and I mean you got trainers involved with them and helping them their diets and their workout regimens. And I
Yeah.
mean, they got game to be a player. You know what I mean? So that's anybody in the sport of bull riding nowadays. Uh, that I remember, back in the day, JB saying he didn't work out, that he stretches out the first jump. But even he stepped it up. I mean, I remember seeing him warming up one day, and I'm like, "What are you doing over there?" He's like, "Well," he's like, "I'm a little older now. I'm having to." He's like, "I don't stretch out like I used to that first jump. Something out there." But I mean, the bulls are just that much stronger too, and they're bigger, and
Well,
they're like,
you told me at the beginning and like early in my career, I felt like I didn't go through bull ropes that often. And then I remember you coming up to me because my rope collapsed on me that event, and you said, "Yeah, at this level, you're going to go through a lot more ropes, so you may start buying them sooner." And after that, I've
"Right,
always said I need to have a good rope on me all the time, maybe two.
all the." Because you don't want, you talk about that and let's elaborate. You don't want that handle to get sloppy
Yeah,
because you got that block and it needs to stay strong because that's where you're able to anchor, and be able to make your moves from. Well, if that thing is, if it's just rolling over and it's like this right here, well, if it does this and the bull's turning back away from your hand and that rope's rolling this way, well, look what my shoulders are
yeah,
doing. And if he's really trying to, I mean, if he kicks clean over his head and pushes hard off that front end like he does, what's stopping you from going over the front end? So you got to kind of have that strong bull rope these days, that strong handle, and them bulls are at that level, they'll really break it down.
yeah. You don't have room for that movement like that. That has to be an anchor. That's one thing I've learned with my bull rope. It has to be an anchor. You want it stiff handled, not sloppy like that because you're riding. You don't have the luxury to give them bulls anything. And if they can take that much from you, just a little bit of movement could throw you at a time on a really good bull that's really strong. Like you get that off, and that could be the end of the bull ride.
Well, and like Adriano Moraes, he used to teach to go, here, and making a bigger move opens you up to
Yeah.
the bull. Now they've tightened it up because the bulls are so much faster
Yeah.
and down that it's here, and so you're not able to open and move like everything's got to be more tight, and like you're saying, your riding style fits that.
Yeah. 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 I've spent millions of hours, I feel like,
I know.
especially on the drop
Okay.
barrel and everything.
Yeah, you got that buck right, and I got one too, and I love it. Like it's been um, a great tool for my workout regimen.
Well, and I think
I'll
as I've
even
gotten older too, because you think of like fighters, like in MMA and stuff. I'll listen to a podcast with Rogan. He's talking to one of those UFC guys, and like the difference on how many of these guys are sparring hard, which would be the equivalent to get on practice bulls. And then there's some guys that are, freaking, they're doing a lot of their, more drill stuff that's non-contact and it's really sport specific. And
yeah, yeah. But when you do I think with my buck ride, like I'll implement riding into my workout.
yeah,
So I got it in my work, and I'll go out there and I'll hit me around in the weights and or whatever it is that I got that day, and then my break. You get your cool down. Well, that's up there. That's on the buck ride. And so I've got the muscles and everything, warmed up and I'm working, but then I'm working on my mind. I'm working
yeah,
on my mood,
yeah,
working on, and then once I've gotten to the point where I feel good on it, I'll do that for a minute or two or a while. And then I'll just take me a break. I'll go, not take me a break from the book, or I go back to working out.
yeah.
And so, like interval training
Yeah, I
and
I incorporated interval training with my buck right
that,
when I'm all the time.
yeah, yeah.
It's like a treadmill for bull riders.
Yeah, it's great cardio.
Yeah.
Except the muscles that you need to work.
100, and you can't hit them. It's I know that you can do stuff in the gym to get that live feel of those muscles engaging at the right timing. Like you're using muscles you're not used to using. And so that drop barrel helps you build up those muscles. I think it's huge for endurance for if you are getting on 2 bulls or you're getting on 3 bulls. Like your body's used to that.
Yeah. And like you're talking about shadow boxing,
Yeah.
and there in the mirror. Well, like I have a mirror I can set up and I can watch and make sure my shoulders are level and where I'm putting my knees, and I can just see it. And if you can see it and you can visualize it, uh, then when you're riding, you don't have to focus on the ride because you've already been,
Oh
it's
yeah.
and there, and you've already developed the muscle memory. And so I don't really see bulls that much when I ride them. I'm just
Yeah.
more so I'm feeling them and I'm reacting to them.
It's there's a guy, Dr. David Cook, and he's a sports psychologist, and he works with a lot of golfers and stuff, but he had this thing that he calls see it, feel it, trust it. And he talks about, you really have to paint the picture, in the golf. You have to see the shot. You have to see and visualize what's going to happen to perfection. And then you have that feel. And then once you have the visualization and that feel, you just trust it. You just go. And how important is that in bull riding?
So important, but the it's a little bit of a different concept because you know how far you got to hit that ball.
100%. Yeah.
You know what the swing's going to look like. You know how big the ball is. You got a club that's going to be able to, you know, put it where you want it, and you know the layout of the ground.
Yeah.
When you get in a bull, that's all totally unpredictable. All you know is what you've got. That's your tool. This is what we've worked on. We built that thing. We didn't rely on a company to build one that would work for this bull. Like
Yeah.
this got to work for every single one of them.
Yeah.
And I got the rope, and I got my spurs, and and I got whatever else I put into it. So um,
I think the feel aspect, there's so much of a feel aspect in board because me and Kyler were talking about how quickly your mind and your body can communicate together. Like you're thinking in bull riding, there's times where there's a billion thoughts that go through your mind. You don't even remember them. Like this is unconscious thoughts. These are thoughts that you're not consciously thinking of, but they're so connected to your physical body that you're able to make those moves and corrections.
yeah, I mean, I know you get really tapped off on one, and you can hear the crowd,
Yeah, yeah,
and you think for just a second, like or it's not even a second, it's a millisecond that you had a thought go through your mind. It's like when your hips were out just a little bit, and you really felt that halt, you know,
yeah,
oh, last but a half a jump because you just moved and
yeah,
reset,
right.
and you know, like you're talking about, it just happens like that. And there's and what you think, how many jumps you think uh, bull makes on average in eight
In eight
seconds?
seconds.
I'd say probably 10 to 15 jumps, wouldn't you?
Probably. It probably depends. I mean, a lot of it I'm sure depends on the style of bull, but I'd say at the high level, probably 10 to 15. They're moving. Even the ones
Yeah,
that have a lot of airtime are moving. Uh, you know, that's my guess, probably. Yeah, but you think of you break down those movements though, because 10 to 15, moves like that. There's tons of movements within that bull is changing leads. He's making flying lead changes. Some of them bulls are doing literally flying lead changes where they're changing leads in the air. And if you
yeah,
don't have the perfect timing and you can't feel that leads change, you're not going to be in the right spot. Bushwhacker did it all the time.
yeah, yeah. I got around like 4 times, and
Was he ever in the same lead? I mean, I think I've seen a video of him change leads twice in the air, like go from a right lead to a left to a right.
I literally felt it the last time I got exactly what you're talking about. He was kind of hit shoulder, and I got on him in Nashville, and he turns to the left right there, and I'm like, I got you here, you know. And I thought if he went out there and turned back to the left like he used to, I did have him. Well, then immediately back to the right, and whenever he did, I was just right where I needed to be, and it just brought me back around that right with him. Well, that old sucker, he felt it, I guess, and like you're talking about, just went to take that next jump and ended up 6 or 8 feet back down the other side of the buck and shoot, real long, and just jerked me over his head. I was like, go! I'm like, and that was the time I was like, I'm not picking him again.
That yeah,
Uh,
that bull did it, but there's a lot of bulls that will do that in the air, and especially those bulls, and you talked about that one bull earlier, bulls that their front end leaves the ground and then their back end hits and actually goes up, and so it's disconnected. They have the ability to almost change leads in the air, and if you're not like specifically paying, if you don't have the feel right, that's why you'll see a bull that will be going to the left, and in the air he'll switch over to the right lead without hitting the ground first, and
roll.
immediately, yep,
They know how to move their body around, you know. They'll roll them hips around, and when they do that, their spine, you know, will push you one way or, and so that's an important part of not being on your butt, you know.
yeah,
But being in that right spot where you're not too far forward, because when they hit and they, you know, people don't realize that a bull can be spinning and he looks easy to ride, but it could be moving away from you and then moving ahead and then back and then tightening it up. And so he could be trying to work you to the outside, over the front, over the back, or down in the well. There's just so much more than what meets the eye. You don't
especially
know.
at that high level. I feel like the
Yeah.
high level bulls even more. Like one of the biggest differences I saw between getting on the UTB and then being off of it is those bulls, even the ones that look the same, they hit so much harder. Those bulls on tour are hitting so much harder. They're even when they're moving forwards and stuff, they almost try to whip you down on their head without,
Yeah.
just because they're hitting so hard. It's not even that they're sucking back. It's just the amount of force that they're hitting with.
Pushing off to make that next move.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they really launch themselves. They can, you know, like they're like it's like Judd Mortensen. He says, "How do you ride a rocket ship?" Well, how would you ride a rocket ship? He was like, if you had to get on the thing, I'm like, well, I guess I just have to get down and just, you know, like, just hang on. Like, you know, I don't know. It's almost the same idea, the same concept. If you think about the way them bulls are taking off, you got to get real, real low. If you're sitting up, it's just going to leave you on the ground.
Yeah, and you
But
can't beat them out too. You beat them out, and then you get slid back. And it's the worst too when you know it. Like you left before them, and you're like, dang, like you're just hoping that they're gonna make a move that's gonna set you up on your rope.
big part of, you know, having a successful ride is that how you leave the buck and shoot, that first jump out. That's going to determine a lot, because you're
That's
either playing catch up or you're having to slow down. And I tell you what, it's hard to do both. It's really hard to slow down and let one catch up to you, because they're so smart these days. If you're ahead of them, they're going to feel you, and they can feel a fly on their back. So I guarantee they know where you're at.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they definitely do. I think that's one of the biggest things when I started really getting in the flow and I started riding a lot more bulls, was focusing on leaving, like on better bulls, like before, everybody's got their own little zone they get into. And like my zone is specifically, I get super aggressive because naturally I'm more laid back. But like
Yeah.
when it's time to go, I'm going to war. So I get really aggressive and I make sure that when I'm leaving, my only focus is when I nod my head, it's leaving with them. Everything else will happen, but like I need to make sure that this is the one jump that I have the most control over. I have the most control over when they leave. So I better leave with them.
Yeah, the Mike Lee, he really elaborated on that whenever he and I started traveling together.
He's the one that told me that actually.
Is he? Okay.
Mike Lee is the one that, yeah.
We traveled together for about 6.5 years, and he coached me a lot. He taught me so much, and that was one thing that he would always. And I remember Heck, last time I seen him, I was out there in Vegas at LJ's deal, and I got on one, and the bull kind of acted goofy in there. He was kind of squatting back a little bit when I took him, and then he jumped forward and then backed up and turned out of there. And when he turned back so fast he hit his head, which I was already over the front. He said, "Yeah, when you left out of there, you're just a little bit too far forward."
Yeah.
That was, um, and so Mike, he's a great teacher, and so I was very blessed to be able to run as many
Yeah.
years and many bull runs as I did with him.
Yeah, I went to
Uh,
a couple with him. He told me that in Billings, one year, and I was getting caught.
yeah,
I was getting
yeah,
caught, getting hung out like I was leaving before him, and I was getting caught up over the front end and just freaking, I'd either make a really good bull ride or I'd get freaking, I didn't really get whipped down. I just get caught up over their heads and they would freaking helicopter me and everything. And
yeah.
he told me, he's like, you need to settle down and make sure you're leaving with those bullets. He said, if you watch me, like I'm really loose.
That's one thing he always told me too was he's like you're a little stiff in the shoulders and shake them and then nod and all right. So I don't know, it works. But another thing that works for me is kind of like JB does. I discovered it. That when I was in Jacksonville, Florida, they had me on the clock. Bully kind of acting, squatted back, and my rope wasn't right or something. I think I might have readjusted it. And Nate, he's out there on the gate latch, and I think I had like 5 seconds left. And I just looked back at him and I'm like, "You ready?" And I'm sitting back by the flank, and I'm take my last, take the rope across my hand the last time while I'm looking at him, and I'm like, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and I'm back here. I'm like, Bucky, because I knew if you nod before time's up,
Oh
they
yeah.
got to they got to count it. So
Uh-huh.
I knew at that point just a couple seconds left on the clock. So I figured, if I'm sitting right here and I try to get up there, if the bull acts goofy, if he bucks around and I don't get settled in, I only got 2 seconds at that point probably to make it happen.
Right.
So I was just like, well, you got that replay. They'll see it. I nodded, you know. And so I just reached up there far in front and was like, Bucky, just as soon as I put my last, put my tail in there, and brought it back around, took the last wrap, buck him like that. And I slid straight to my rope as the gate was open, and I went around that day. I mean, just right there in the gate, around the left and the back around the right, and I rode him dead easy. And I remember a couple of them judges, was like, "Why ain't you been doing that all along?" And I tell you what, it set a new bar for me. Like I started doing that from then on. Just as soon as I took that rap, let's go,
There you go. Yeah.
and I would, my feet and everything would land right where they needed to.
Yeah.
And I was leaving with him, and I didn't have time to get up there and get a hold of him. And all that does is creates an opportunity for you to think.
Yeah, for sure. That's it's such a big deal. And I that one of the things that I pride myself on is I've only been put on the clock one time.
Yeah.
I've been put on it twice, and they were both on UTBs. And the other time I was nodding my head when they put it on there, so it really wasn't. But and one of the things that, like, when you start to think, so when you're in there, and I know some of the guys, they do that and they get in that spot, and I feel like whenever your mind starts getting in the position where it's like things aren't perfect, that's when you need to just go, because you're actually getting away from your reactionary, the thought process that's going to be no thought, where you're just reacting. So sometimes I'll even forcefully do it if I notice that, like, I'm getting too comfortable about thinking in the shoots. I'll start to just kind of go, just to get my mind back to like extreme focus.
It's that laser focus, and where you don't think, you just, like you said, you react. And um, really, I mean, we ought to be able to get in that buck and shoot and be out of there in 30 seconds.
Yeah. And honestly,
Easy.
I'd rather him too, The bulls have gotten so big. A lot of them lean. I'd rather a sucker get in there and start bucking in the chute, and you
Same.
get the timing of them, and it's not a big deal. Than when they're freaking like big old freaking fat hogs just leaning on you, and you're just like, dang.
Yeah, I can't stand one just to lean and oh, golly, like they're too big for all that these days.
Well, now they're putting like 40 ropes on them. I went to last year, I forget
All
which
right.
UTB it was. I watched 4 ropes on a bull. 4 ropes. They had his hip flanked, his neck tied to the side, um, his the thing over top. There's a bunch of different ways they had him tied in. It was wild.
Yeah, and then probably left the gate open and to the oh, hang on, somebody tried to call me. Um, I've actually been on one that was so big that they couldn't shut the slide behind him, so they
Did you
had.
get on Mississippi Hippie?
Oh, I've got on him probably 3 or 4 times too.
Okay. I've seen some videos of that where they couldn't shut the back of the
Yeah,
chute.
yeah, no, they just take and run a plank rope behind him, keep him in there.
You would think
But
that would
yeah,
be dangerous for them leaving, but I guess not because they did it. Like you'd think if
yeah,
they kick straight up, they're not cleared.
you wouldn't think so, but
But
I don't know. I don't know. I figured it
they got
out.
him up to 2,600 pounds, I think was his highest competing weight. That's
Yeah,
stupid.
I mean, I remember, your body on your rope, you adjust it, and so your loop is smaller on a bigger bull, and I remember almost nearly just not having any room to take more on that guy. So like when I'd get on him, I'd know I was like, all right, just let your rope out all the
All
way.
the way, yeah. You know what, after you've been on him once, you know your rope size. It's all the way
Right.
let out.
I got on a 3-year-old at the Calgary Stampede that was that he was 20, like 2350.
Holy crap.
And a 3-year-old, I'm like, that's crazy.
And
And
people talk about so how big this is. People talk about weight, like they say 2,000 pounds. Most of the bulls are not 2,000 pounds. Would you say 1,700 is the average weight? Maybe 16.
I mean, that's a big bull. I would say average, and we've done a lot of those weigh-ins. You're looking at like 14,
So,
1,500.
so when we're talking 23, 2,600, we're talking stupid amount of weight. Like we're talking, 1,000 pounds over what an average bull is.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It's like, who would you think? Like a heavyweight going against, a featherweight. and, of course, we're always the featherweight in the match,
Yeah,
but
yeah, no joke. Yeah.
but yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, it'd be like more like a middleweight and a featherweight. On average, you might have a chance,
You might, yeah.
but yeah, no. Uh, I think maybe biggest the biggest bull I ever got on was in Tacoma, Washington. I got on a bull named Painted Pudge. He was originally from Canada, big old black and white bull, and I want to say he weighed in at 2650.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
I think the biggest one I've ever actually been on and rode was 2,300. It's the biggest
really.
bull that I've been on. Yeah,
Well,
that I know for a fact. I'm pretty sure that one's the biggest because I never got on hippie. There's only a few bulls out there that are that big.
yeah, and I don't think Hippie was that at that. He might have been near
He
that. Got on him, but
he was.
I know.
I think he was between 2,200 and 26. 26 the most, and he may have competed at 22, 23 most of the time.
Yeah. Well, I know that they said they just weighed that Painted Pudge because they brought him down,
Yeah,
and that was what he weighed when I got on him. But I say that's probably the biggest bull. There's been
pretty
a lot of
freaking
bulls.
big.
I didn't know exactly how much they weighed, but I know that probably the first real big bull I ever got on was in Cheyenne when I was maybe 18 or 19 years old, and he was a huge brindle. gosh, he had me a little bit like I wasn't intimidated, like scared. I was just like, man, like this bull's. I really didn't know what to expect. That I'm like, golly, like he's huge. He's probably super strong, and I imagine being in Cheyenne, like he's probably going to get it, and just bring it. And I don't want to be late.
Yeah, right.
And they actually called him Double XL, and they said, yeah, he should be right there in the gate. So whenever he turned back to the left, right in my hand, what I do, I just dove right in there and wasted myself. So stupid. But hey, you got to learn at some point. That was when I realized I was like, yeah, okay, you ride them just like the rest.
Yeah, no joke. Man, you know what's funny? You speaking just diving off in there is so last year me and Dakota were we were going to UTBs and velocities, but we were getting on really good bulls every single weekend. And then it was like I don't know if the summer had just kicked off or there was just an off weekend, there was nothing going on. And we went to a little deal and just both of us just freaking first jump out of there, just dove off in there. We're probably on 19-point bulls, and you go to like a true 22 pointer, like a
Yeah.
true blue 22 pointer, the bucking bull right there. That's a 44-point bull.
Uh,
And then you go to something that's like so slow, and you're just like, man.
yeah, it's you really got to learn how to compensate, and that's where that first jump comes in hand. Like by
Yeah.
the second jump, almost ought to have them figured out.
Yeah,
You know,
when I first started, Ray Cox, it kind of helped me out a lot, and he was a boxer too, and he's like, I look at bull riding a lot like boxing. The fight's won the first 3 rounds. If you win the first 3 rounds, you should win the fight. But
yeah.
I think if you can get that timing within the first 3 rounds of a bull ride, you have a really good chance that you should be able to finish that.
Well, and a lot of them bulls, if you think about it and you've watched it enough, you realize that they sort of settle into a rhythm about that time. They once they get out there, they're still throwing a bunch of stuff at you, but then once you make it through all that, about 4 or 5 seconds, they're really starting to get the pattern laid out, and they're
Yeah,
just kind
and
of
and
a lot
that's
of them.
even
It's rare that you find one that don't wait for the whistle. He just keeps doing that.
yeah, right, yeah. And they're definitely out there, and heck, with the breeding, I think it's becoming more. But even the ones that the intensity stays the same, you still got that timing. So unless they're doing something crazy, you still have that timing there.
Got that. And nowadays, I'm seeing more and more bulls reverse in the spin once it or jump out of it and do something. One of those throw a big wild horse fit or something. But it's just they're so unpredictable. Yeah, and I think that their energy level, to go along with their diet and everything, and they work these bulls out too. Like they'll swim them and exercise them, and so
Therapy,
they're
give
just
them therapy and everything.
and so, I mean, yeah, they're not getting as tired and, you know, settling in near as much as they used to, but not at that level.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's been awesome having you on here. I'll definitely do it again. I need to make a trip down here in the next few months. I need to make a trip down to Tennessee, and we'll do some cool stuff and do a
it,
podcast.
I've been thinking about doing a school here lately, and I've talked to Mike about coming out to Tennessee and trying to get something going on. Love to have you come down and see if we couldn't maybe get something going. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, it would be. Heck yeah. I'm all about that's the reason I started Western Edge, and I know you've talking about the production side is like how can we make this demographic, this community better, like we live in a world where technology spread everything apart. Like let's start actually kind of coming together as a community, in the Western world. It needs it.
Mike, you're from the East, on this side of the on Are there on
Yeah.
the sorry this side of the river over here? We don't have the opportunities to be able to go and get on that caliber of bulls and to learn from that. Those guys, they're far and few over here. You got you and me and JB, and we're all in 3 different states right there, and kind of these guys that want to come, they're up and comers. They're all time messaging me and like, where can I go and learn how to ride
Yeah.
bulls? Where can I go get on more bulls? And, you know, so, I mean, I think it'd be good to, create an opportunity at least to give them some foundation for when they do go and that guy wants to put them on that bad booger, at least they got a chance to ride him.
Well, and I get it all the time too. A bunch of guys asking me the same questions, and from where you're at and from why we're not in Texas, so these guys coming up, it's not like they can just go anywhere. They can't just go to the next city or the next town and
Uh,
really find how to do this and do it properly. So I definitely think it's needed in this side of the country.
well, let's get it going. I appreciate you having me on the show. It's good to talk to you.
Heck yeah. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you go check out Cody Nance, one of the best to ever do it. One of my heroes, bull riding, even better friend now. It's a pleasure having you on here. We'll talk to you guys later.